Hi, I wanted to make a video because working in doing a lot of pre-sales in my role, Copilot is something that people are looking for, but there are quite a few places that it's managed in the system. So, going to take a look at where you can configure components of Copilot. First of all, Microsoft have recently updated their admin center. So you'll see we've got the new admin center here. And we do have this Copilot area available over here. So this is where turning on a number of pieces of the functionality are available, but not everything is in here. So as you can see, we've got things for configuring the Power Platform, Copilot Studio, Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Pages. These are mostly shortcuts to areas in the platform. So you'll see some of these are under preview, but if we come in here, we are meant to be able to come in and configure certain components of Copilot. And as you can see here, it says who controls the features. So we also have the ability to look at the reporting around the analytics of how Copilot is being used, but what I want to do is show you all the other places where Copilot can be configured. So in this case, for example, if we go into this trial environment here, we have the settings function. So this is where we come in, and under features is where we turn on the major components of Copilot. So Copilot in general, turning it on, some of the configurable agent capabilities, prompts, form fill assistance, and a few other areas in the platform, but definitely not all of the functionality. So as you'll see, if we don't have some of these things turned on, we won't be able to access Copilot once we're in these environments. But what I'm going to do quickly is jump into the different app types, so the first-party apps that Microsoft make, and talk about configuring Copilot in those. So anyone who hasn't used the customer service capabilities, we get the Copilot, which is very specifically focused on customer service. So we have our ability to ask a question, and you can see our prompts in here. We can do things like save prompts, which is nice. We can create our own prompts, but this is very much focused around using the cases that you have in the platform, the knowledge base articles that you have, and also the functionality to be able to respond to that. So if we just take a look, if I jump over to my inbox here, here's some of the features that show up as part of Copilot. So we have the system auto suggesting an insight on this over here. So it's gone and looked at the title, it's gone and created some suggestions of what we might want to do, and it's given us that insight proactively without us even asking a question. We have the ability to come in here, have a look at our prompts, and it's got us the information that we can go and ask a question of, and you'll see we can go and get that response. So very similar to the proactive one, except we've asked the question about it. We've got a case summary here, which is going and looking at some of the fields we've pointed it at. So things like case title, who the customer is, what cases they've previously had, what's happening in their timeline. So we can actually prompt that summary for more detail. We also have the timeline highlights. So you'll see here 3 bullet points that have just come from the information that's held in our timeline. And then we have some more base functionality that comes with Copilot, such as the form fill assistant, which means we can copy and paste, drag and drop files, or we can go and upload them from our file structure in the background. So that's quite useful. Previously, we had some issues with it auto-populating without people asking it, but I do recommend looking at this and seeing if this is functionality you might want to turn on, and just make sure you've got it configured the right way for your environment. If we jump out and go into one of our views over here, we can see some of the other functions in Copilot. So we have our ability to ask natural language questions, and you'll see it will automatically suggest some prompts for what kinds of questions we might want to ask, but you can go in and you'll see you can put in dates, you can put in regions, you can go and ask whatever questions you like. Go and look at one of my other videos for that. We also have the visualize functionality, where it will go and auto create a chart based on what we've asked it to do. These charts can be copied and pasted into other documents, which is something that gives it a bit more functionality above and beyond that. So the functionality I'm showing right now was configured in that original area that I showed you, but some of those things that we saw when we went into an actual case, in particular that auto response, that's not configured in that area. So where do you go to do that? You'll see if you are using the customer service workspace like I was there, this is where you can come in and configure things like intent. You can also come in and turn on the case management agent. So the case management agent will allow you to configure things to do automated case creation based on inbound emails and chats. It will populate the fields that it can recognize and answer for based on the way you've configured this. And we can also do case follow-up and resolution, so communicating with your contacts as the case is going through its process, and also closing cases and details as things happen in the system. So this is only available in this area, as is some of these other capabilities here. So you'll see the Copilot for questions and emails. We can come in and configure a number of details here. So that ask a question that you saw making that visual, the email pane, also turning on Copilot recommendations for emails. Down here we can set up our knowledge bases, so we can use the knowledge base inside Dynamics, the Power Platform knowledge base, and I do recommend looking at that if you have the capacity to do that and you're not already embedded in another knowledge base system. And the reason for that is if you're using the knowledge base inside the Dataverse, you can leverage that to use in chatbots, you can leverage it to use in the search functionality in the Power Platform. You can also distribute it inside Teams to your internal team, but it has some extra functionality around auto creation. We'll show you that in a minute, and the ability to set things like internal and external visibility and expiration dates. You can use other knowledge sources to do that, but you do have to build a number of pieces of those functionality components that I just talked about. You can also come in here and put in a number of external facing websites, so third-party websites that you can use to answer emails with your knowledge base system. And you can come in and do things like manage the prompts that you use to create the questions and also what you point to create those emails. Once again, only available inside this area for you to configure. In here, we also can come in and do the summaries. Previously, those were only on the case form. We now have the ability to do it on custom records, and that includes records that are out of the box functionality, but you can come in and add new record types and put in a prompt here for creating your summaries. So they appear at the top of the page. We also can configure an embeddable widget. That is mainly if you're using other tools outside of Dynamics and you want to add that. And we have the ability to do plugins. So plugins is where we can set up those prompts that show up in the ask a question area, but this is also where we can go and configure a capability inside Copilot Studio, and I'll show you this later. And then once you've published that, that becomes available for you to be able to put into this area here and ask questions of those third-party tools and have them pop up inside that chat pane on the right-hand side. So that's quite powerful when you want to expand beyond your Dynamics knowledge base. We also, in the system here have the ability to edit Copilot knowledge creation. So that is when you are responding to a case and you close it, it can ask you if you want to create a knowledge base article. It will be smart enough to go and look at the system and see if you already have one that's available. And if you don't, it will create one for you to send off for approval. If you do have one, but you've answered with additional information that you haven't had previously, it will suggest an update to that knowledge base article. So that's quite powerful. Also, if you're not currently using your knowledge base and you're using chat functionality or you have historical cases, you'll see you can come in here and turn on the system to go and create knowledge base articles for you based on your case responses. So that's quite powerful for setting up that knowledge base. And once again, all held inside this part of the system here. If you are using the customer service workspace, this is where you have the ability to set up your functionality around who has access to Copilot, what they see in their environment, and also what features are turned on and turned off inside the system for a particular user. So you could have some power users that have access to all of this functionality and another set of users that you decide you don't want to do that with. This is not available if you are using a custom app. Even if it has cases inside it, you do have to go on and it's either turned on or off for all users who access that app. And that is turned on at the back end, deep down in the system. I'm not going to show you that as part of this, but that is if you're using customer service in the platform. Now, if you come in and you're using sales, you'll see we don't have that ask a question or write an email. We only have the chat functionality. And this is where you can have your prompts and you can come in and you've got quite a lot of specific sales focused prompts that are in there. One of the other things we can also do is come in and configure Copilot for sales. So as you'll see here, in sales, we have another area where we come in and we configure some really specific things for sales. So I'm going to click on this and you'll see in here we have a whole lot of capabilities around turning on the qualification agent, which will go and look at your leads. And this is where you can configure the criteria and it will tell you whether it's a hot lead or whether you should disqualify that lead. As things change against the lead, it might change that information. And we'll show you this a little bit later. I'll have to come in and configure that and then come back to you. But we also have the ability to show the opportunity summaries, leads. If we turn on auditing, you can see what's happened historically with your leads or contacts, and it can tell you what's changed against those records as part of Copilot. Same with accounts, and you'll see you can come in here and add your custom fields on any of these records. And in knowledge sources, you can actually go and add SharePoint locations, which is separate from how you add your knowledge locations in customer service. So you'll see now I've turned on that functionality, we get some additional information when we come in to the record. So it'll show us what we turned on, give us that summary and show us things like competitive insights. If we've got any products, if we go into an opportunity here, let's go and look at one of these opportunities. So as we can see, we've got the opportunity summary in here, and we've got product insights for related products, or competitor insights if they're known. So this has those features that we turned on and saw across the system, such as the timeline highlights. In here we've got a case summary in its own box that's available. If we come out into these records, we see up the top here, we're going to have the natural language search and the visualization. So those are turned on at the environment level. We'll come back to that in the future. We can also get a Copilot dashboard, but I haven't loaded that yet. But as you can see, we have a very different experience with Copilot in sales. Similar to the different experience we get in Copilot in field service. If we come down to the settings here, we'll see we have the Copilot available in Outlook and create inspections in Teams. Not as much Copilot functionality in this part of the system, but we also have the Copilot available in the mobile functionality of field service. So that's when you can use Copilot to do voice to text to fill in fields and a number of other summary capabilities. What we do now is come into Outlook, where if we have our environment set up with sales, sales or field service, we have some functionality we can leverage inside Dynamics. So you'll see here the environment has gone and looked at this email, linked it into our Dynamics environment, created a Copilot summary of the email, and we can save it into Dynamics. So it even gives us the ability to turn on server-side sync. If we haven't turned that on in the environment. So it's going and doing that automatically. There's quite a lot of functionality around doing summaries in here. If you're creating appointments in Outlook with Copilot activated, it will automatically record the meeting and give you a summary after the meeting. So this is configured in this part of the system. There is also an app for field service that you can add to Outlook. There is not currently one for customer service. There is a Dynamics for customer service, but that is actually for third-party customer service tools. So, one more place where we can leverage Copilot configurations and settings. You'll see I'm in Copilot Studio. You'll see I'm in Copilot Studio and in my customer service trial. And if I come into my agents, because I have customer service, I've got Copilot for customer service. So this is where we can go and add additional prompts, or we can link additional knowledge bases. If we go outside the boundaries of the capabilities of this tool, we can actually go further into one of these areas and go and expand the details of Copilot using a full related agent, and you'll see we get the ability to do things like add topics, activities, do analytics. So this is linked to Dynamics, and we can get that additional functionality, or we can build an additional agent and link that all the way back to where I was presenting this capability here as the plugins for generative AI. So definitely not everywhere that you can configure Copilot, but I did want to do a high level and just show how many places and how detailed the Copilot functionality in the platform is, because it can be quite confusing when you're going and setting it up. And hopefully Microsoft can pull it together so that they can streamline that control as time goes on. Hopefully that helps make sense of some of the capabilities. Definitely not everything, but hopefully you can see that Copilot is powerful, embedded everywhere, and something you can use across the platform.